As the world anxiously awaits the election of the next pope, black smoke has just risen again from the Vatican, keeping the Church and the faithful in suspense. But what is really happening behind the scenes? What does this wait mean for the Catholic Church and for the times we are living in? The smoke may be black, but our faith is whiter than ever. Brace yourselves, because in this historic moment, heaven's answer may surprise everyone. The black smoke that rose on the morning of the second day of the conclave has once again left the world in suspense. Like a symbolic shadow hovering over the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, it did not merely convey the absence of a decision, but rather the presence of a clamor. The choice has not yet come, and that says more than it seems. The second black smoke is not just protocol. It is a sign that hearts have not yet united, that the hands that write the votes are still hesitant, that there is more prayer to be said, more silence to be heard, more time to be granted. It is a time of waiting, and waiting, in the Bible, is never empty. In ancient times, Israel waited for a king after God's own heart, and that king was not chosen right away. The first name was not always the right one. The most visible one was not always the chosen one. The throne of David, before being occupied by a shepherd, saw the rejection of men who seemed right to human eyes. God's choice often contradicts the logic of the earth. Today, in St. Peter's Square, thousands wait. Many pray. Others speculate. But in heaven, where there is no confusion, everything is under control. The black smoke that has risen is not a delay. It is an invitation, a call to vigilance, to trust, and above all to intercession. God is still writing this story. In the meantime, eyes are turned not only to the chimney, but to what it represents. The heart of a church in discernment, seeking more than a leader, seeking a shepherd after the heart of Christ. And so, with our gaze turned upwards, we enter deeper into the mystery of the conclave. When they pass through the doors of the Sistine Chapel, the cardinal electors do not just carry their votes. They carry the weight of the Church, the expectations of the world, and, above all, the call of God. Inside, there are no public speeches, no cameras, no outside voices. There is silence. There is prayer. There is mystery. The conclave is not an ordinary meeting. It is a sacred convocation. The word conclave comes from the Latin conclave, with a key, a clear sign that what happens there is locked, sealed, hidden from human gaze so as to be exposed to the gaze of God. They are not just choosing a pope. They are, with fear and trembling, trying to listen to the one who has already chosen. Just as the upper room was the place where the apostles, locked up and fearful, received the Holy Spirit, so the Sistine Chapel is transformed, in these days, into a new upper room. Each vote cast in the ballot box carries the hope that it is more than a human choice, that it is an echo of the divine voice. And here lies the paradox. These are men with limitations, different visions, different backgrounds. Some are there with strong convictions, others with divided hearts. But all, without exception, are called to bend their inner knee and ask, "Lord, whom do you want to place?" In the Old Testament, we see that God used lots to reveal his will. Today he uses votes. But the principle remains. It is not the hand that writes that decides, but the hand that guides. The silence of the conclave is eloquent. Every second inside calls for discernment. And outside, we are invited to join our prayer to theirs. Not as spectators, but as a church. For this is not just a Roman moment. It is a universal moment. Above all, it is a spiritual moment. And in the midst of this mystery, a name begins to resonate more strongly. In the silent interior of the Sistine Chapel, as minds ponder and hearts pray, one name begins to echo more frequently: Pietro Parolin. For many observers and even among the cardinals, he stands out as the most prepared, most experienced, most stable candidate. But is he also the one most desired by heaven? Pietro Parolin is no stranger to the corridors of the Vatican. Secretary of State since 2013, he has been the diplomatic hand behind some of the most delicate decisions of the Holy See. His ability to dialogue with hostile governments, his calm articulation, his serene firmness, all this has given him an image of balance and reliability. In turbulent times, he represents, for many, a safe haven. But there is something more. Parolin is Italian, and some see this as a return to tradition. After two foreign popes, a German and an Argentine, some feel that Rome wants a Roman pope again, or at least one with deep roots in the soil of Italy. However, what makes him strong among men must also be discerned before God. Would he be the faithful and prudent servant, capable of shepherding an increasingly scattered flock? Would he have the prophetic boldness necessary to guide the church in increasingly anti-Christian times? Even among the cardinals, there is resistance. Some see him as too moderate, others as part of a continuity of management that many want to end. And here comes the spiritual dilemma. The most politically skilled may not be the most spiritually faithful. The most diplomatic may not be the most prophetic. And yet, we cannot ignore, God has already chosen leaders using men like Parolin, discreet, prudent, silent, to fulfill great missions. Moses was slow of speech. Joseph was just a carpenter. And David was the last in line. If Parolin is chosen, he will need much more than talent. He will need fire. Fire from above. And if it is not him, still his name serves as a sign. The Spirit is searching hearts, and the world, once again, holds its breath before the unseen. But his is not the only name at stake. Although Pietro Parolin is the focus of much of the attention, the Spirit blows where it wills, and there are other names that emerge in the murmurs of the corridors and between the lines of the votes. The conclave is never predictable, and if the smoke has not yet turned white, it is because there are spiritual disputes being fought in the depths. Among the favorites is the name of Luis Antonio Tagle, a Filipino cardinal, beloved for his gentleness, his charisma and his identification with the poor. Tagle has been seen by many as the continuation of an outgoing, missionary church, sensitive to the peripheries. But there are those who see him as too aligned with the current status quo, lacking the necessary strength to respond to the most acute internal challenges. Another name that is circulating with increasing frequency is that of Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, an Italian, linked to the community of Sant'Egidio, known for his pastoral simplicity and his work on social fronts. Zuppi represents a close-knit, street-based church, but he is also linked to progressive views that cause concern in more traditional sectors. And then, almost in a whisper, but powerfully, we hear the name of Robert Serra, an African cardinal, with a deep spiritual life, a prophetic voice and a firm stance in the face of relativist tendencies. Serra represents silent resistance, radical fidelity, courageous orthodoxy. However, his name divides. For some, a prophet. For others, a return to the past. On this invisible chessboard, cardinals do not play alone. The history of the Church shows us that the election of the Pope is often marked by surprises. Men who were not at the center of the comments were elected under strong spiritual discernment. Like Karol Wojtyla, practically unknown to the general public, or even Joseph Ratzinger, who resisted the call until the last moment. The invisible hand of God acts when human eyes are already tired. He confounds the powerful, exalts the humble and writes with lines that no one expects. That is why every name considered must be placed, first of all, on the altar of intercession. And if the dispute still continues, it is because heaven is still working. Yesterday's black smoke may be preparing the white of the revelation that is coming. In the silence of the Sistine Chapel, as the cardinals cast their votes, there are eyes that see everything, not those of the press, not those of ecclesiastical politics, but the eyes of heaven. Yes, heaven is watching. And this truth changes everything. Every name suggested, every hidden intention, every silent vote written. Everything is naked and exposed before the one who searches hearts. The conclave is not just a human act clothed in solemnity. It is a moment of spiritual judgment. Not a judgment between men, but a judgment of intentions. God weighs motives, separates cunning from wisdom, distinguishes zeal from vanity. And while men seek alliances, the Spirit seeks purity of intention. The Pope who will be chosen is not just a leader, but a sign. And like every sign, he will be examined by all. But before that, he is examined by God. Just as in Revelation, when John sees the Lamb opening the seals and the angels recording the deeds of men, in this conclave there is also an invisible dimension at work. Angels are present. The throne of God is watching. The decision that seems to come from votes actually comes from divine permission or intervention. And let us not be mistaken, discernment and judgment go hand in hand. There is no true discernment without spiritual judgment, and there is no correct choice if there is no fear of the Lord. Like Samuel before the sons of Jesse, the cardinals are faced with alternatives. But only the Lord knows the heart. Heaven does not choose the most charismatic, the most political, or the most diplomatic. It chooses the one who most resembles the Son. And so the divine criterion is always different. Fidelity, humility, truth, courage. These are not always the visible qualities, but they are always the essential ones. That is why, even amidst the black smoke and the anxiety of the faithful, there is peace, because we know that God is presiding over this moment. The future of the church is not in the hands of men, but in the hands of the one who founded it on the rock. And perhaps, at this very moment, heaven is turning its gaze upon one name in particular. What if what is about to happen is not just the election of a new pope, but the beginning of a prophetic time for the church? What if the Holy Spirit is preparing, at this very moment, not just a successor to Peter, but a living sign of the times? A man who, more than administering structures, will be called to confront the darkness that is advancing over the world? We are living in intense times. Faith is under attack not only from the outside, but also from within. Confused doctrines, scandals, divisions, the loss of a sense of the sacred. Everything points to a church in deep crisis. But the history of salvation always shows us that it is precisely in these moments that God raises up prophetic leaders. Not perfect, not popular, but indispensable. A prophetic pontificate would not be marked by media applause, but by silent persecution. Not by diplomatic comfort, but by the cross of faithful witness. He would come not to please the world, but to call it back to the truth. A prophetic pope would be one who, like John the Baptist, creates out in the desert. Like Elijah, clashes kings. Like Paul, preaches in chains. Are we ready for this? Or are we just wanting more of the same? The Spirit may well surprise. He may choose the unlikely. He may raise up someone who displeases the complacent, who shakes structures, who is a sign of contradiction even within his own home. This pope, if he comes, will be profoundly Eucharistic, Marian, and rooted in prayer. His voice will be like a trumpet, not a whisper, and his mission will be to prepare the church for even more intense battles, perhaps even for the time of great tribulation. Many expect a reformer. Others expect a manager. But what if what we really need is a prophet? The Spirit may be speaking. And if we pay attention, we will realize something bigger is in motion. It is not just a succession. It is a spiritual repositioning of the church in the scenario of the end times. The black smoke may soon turn white. But the color that matters most now is that of the flame that burns in the hearts of those who have ears to hear what the Spirit says to the churches. As the world watches the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, and the black smoke rises once again, a clear sign emerges. The waiting is not over. The black smoke is an invitation to patience, prayer, and discernment. For many, it is a moment of frustration, an unwelcome pause in the process of renewal. But for us as a church, it is not a failure. It is a reminder that God is still in control. In the Bible, we see many moments of waiting. The people of Israel awaited the promise of the Messiah. The apostles waited in the upper room for the coming of the Holy Spirit. They waited, not with folded arms, but with fervent prayers, with open hearts and with a willingness to follow God's will, not their own. And that is what we are called to do now, to wait in prayer, not with apathy, but with expectation. The smoke may be black, but our faith is white. The white of trust, hope, and the certainty that God always acts at the right time. As Christians, our role is not just to look at the visible signs, but to trust in the invisible, in what God is preparing behind the scenes. He is the one who chooses the moment, and He is the one who prepares us for what is to come. The election of a pope is not just a matter of ecclesiastical politics. It is a spiritual matter. Every vote cast in the ballot box is accompanied by the watchful eye of God. Every decision made in the conclave is weighed by heavenly wisdom. But for the decision to be clear, we, the church, must be in prayer, in unity, in vigilance. Our role now is not just to wait passively, but to intercede. Now is the time to increase our faith, the time to strengthen our prayer. The black smoke should not shake our trust in God, but rather call us to an even deeper commitment. May our prayers rise like incense before God as we wait, and may our faith, white as the purity of the Lamb, be our greatest testimony. The white smoke that will soon rise will not only be the sign of an election, but the sign that we are all together, in faith, awaiting the fulfillment of the divine plan. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Don't miss any videos about the most important moments that shape the church and the world. Click the subscribe button now and activate the bell to be the first to know when new videos are aired. We want to know your opinion. What do you think about the next pope? Do you believe that we are on the verge of a prophetic pontificate? Leave your comment below and let's talk about the signs of the times. Your opinion is very important to us. If this video touched your heart, like it and share it with your friends and family. Let's spread the message together and generate more reflection on the future of our church. Stay tuned. We have more special content coming. Be sure to follow us to always stay up to date with what really matters to your faith and to the church.